98.
Very good afternoon to you. I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC News Break. Current drought conditions are not only hurting Barbadian farmers, but can result in a hike in the price of produce on the local market. Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society, James Paul, tells CBC News farmers in non-irrigated areas cannot plant crops as they like. Fruit and vegetable farmers are, however, not experiencing huge problems, especially those in irrigated areas. They may, however, be using more water. Mr. Paul says farmers are waiting on the rain for relief.
As it stands at the moment, you will note that some of the areas are looking very cracked and dry, and that in itself is having some hardship. So it will be impacting agricultural production as long as the drought persists in those non-irrigated areas.
With respect to egg production, Mr. Paul says efforts are on to get it back to where it should be. He says agricultural officials continue to monitor the outbreak of the avian influenza in the U.S.
That in itself could actually impact on our sources of hatched eggs. So that is something that we have to watch very carefully in the industry here. But generally you find that in the international market you had actually nearly 10% of the industry in the U.S. being affected by the avian influenza virus, and that in itself will have some impact down here. But certainly what we're trying to do is trying to make sure that we fill the barns with the amount of layers that they're supposed to have, and I'm hoping, of course, that in itself will see an increased level of production as we go down through the year.
The need for action against chronic non-communicable diseases is urgent, and the Commonwealth Secretariat is telling Barbados the problem is one in which every Barbadian must play a part. The message was conveyed by its health advisor, Magna Aidu, during a meeting aimed at strengthening the functions of NCD commissions in CARICOM member states. Ms. Aidu welcomes activities in the region to bring about change and encouraged Caribbean countries to work to fill numerous gaps. Data collection is an area of concern.
And I think as health professionals or public health people, data collection is a key to what we do, because this is when we're able to evidence the work we're doing. That's how we're able to evaluate what we're doing and its impact. So that's what I picked up yesterday. Wonderful things happening in the region, but we need to share a bit more. We need to identify best practice and spread the word so others can learn from it, and data collection, so we can break the silo, the way that we work.
Minister of Health John Boyce says fundamental changes in behavior are needed in order to improve the health of the population.
More and more, there is a realization that there is need for a more strategic approach which will address the NCD problem at its source. That is, to address the social determinants that lead to the health status of our people. The type of environment in which we live, the quality of food, its price and its availability, that's the price and availability of the right foods, the work environment, the availability of safe outdoor spaces to enable participation in physical activity are some of the factors to be addressed.
Mr. Boyce says civil society and the private sector have a role to play in the fight against NCDs.
These are non-state actors who can greatly influence the direction and outcome of NCD policies because of their activism, credibility, and access to resources. I believe that the public sector can learn from their experiences and expertise, especially in advocacy, resource mobilization, and alliance building.
Barbados will be tracking the success of graduates from its secondary and several tertiary level institutions to ensure the needs of the labor force are being met. The move was announced by officials in the Ministry of Education yesterday. Consultant Research Administrator in the Ministry, Anri Bab, says the last TRACE survey was conducted in 2000, and after 15 years, such research is critical for future planning of educational courses.
It has been quite a while that we've been able to evaluate students' perceptions of the programs that they have completed, what they believe about the delivery methods. There is a lot of information that needs to be gleaned from them, and for us to actually recraft and create these skills for the future to take the ministry and also to take our nation forward.
Mr. Babb says the survey, which will be done in 3 phases, will start in a few weeks. He says they will be targeting students who have completed secondary school last year, as well as those who attended the Barbados Vocational Training Board and SJPP. Mr. Babb says they will also be surveying those who study technical and vocational subjects at the Barbados Community College, and explained why.
We want to really evaluate how are these students moving into the labor market, how are they performing, how long does it take them to acquire a job. These are the things that we want to measure and produce metrics. We know that we're in an era and an age of technology, but also on information and decisions that are based on what you have evaluated and not simply how I feel today. So no longer will a person decide, let me just study underwater basket weaving, for example, because there may not be a future, but they may want to look and see, hey, these are the areas that have the highest employability. If I do this, I am pretty much guaranteed a job in this market.
We'd like to apologize for the quality of those 2 extracts. Well, Barbados is also getting top marks from a visiting Arizona University official for its drive towards developing its renewable energy sector. Project manager of the Arizona State University, Boulant Beiser, who is on the island conducting training in photovoltaic installation, says the island is moving in the right direction. He tells CBC News there is a big market for solar PV here.
It's very important not only to enforce or to embrace the technology, but it's also important to provide incentives to the end user, to provide the framework, if you like, from the government down to the end user to embrace these technologies by incentives, giving financial incentives, by educating, by providing the means and the capacity to the installers. Because remember, once you it's very important that you have a proper installation done so the end user is happy with it. What happens if you don't do it properly? The end user will be unhappy, that word will spread around the neighborhood, and people will be doubting if solar PV is the right technology.
Time for a break now, but when we come back, we'll have news from the region and